Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself right now. You wake up, you go to work, you get a paycheck, you pay your bills. Maybe you throw a little bit into your 401k because your HR manager told you to. And then at the end of the month, you look at your bank account and think, okay, that's fine. Not great, not terrible, just fine. And somewhere deep down, there's this quiet, nagging voice that says, is this really it? If that hit a little close to home, keep watching. Because what I'm about to show you might be the most important thing you hear all year. You see, most people think the middle class is the goal. You grow up, you work hard, you get a stable job, maybe a house in the suburbs, 2 cars in the driveway, the occasional vacation to somewhere warm. And you're supposed to feel grateful for that. You're supposed to feel like you made it. But here's the truth that nobody talks about at the dinner table, nobody teaches you in school, and nobody in a suit on TV is going to say out loud. The middle class was never designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to keep you comfortable enough that you never try to become wealthy. And I know that sounds aggressive. I know that sounds like something a guy in a trench coat posts on the internet at 2 in the morning. But stay with me here, because I'm going to walk you through exactly how this happened, who benefits from it, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it. Let's start with a question that sounds simple, but is actually kind of mind-bending. Where did the middle class even come from? After World War II, the United States economy was booming. Factories that had been making tanks and bombs were now making washing machines and refrigerators. There was an enormous amount of stuff to sell. But here's the problem. If you're a business owner in the 1950s, who's going to buy all of this stuff? The wealthy already have everything they need. The poor don't have enough money. So you need a new class of people. A class that earns just enough to be constant consumers. People who work hard, get paid reasonably, and then spend almost everything they earn on products, services, and experiences. And corporations, alongside the government, basically engineered that class into existence. Think about it. The GI Bill gave veterans access to cheap home loans, which sounds great on the surface, and in many ways it was. But what it also did was lock millions of American families into 30-year mortgages. Suddenly, you couldn't quit your job. You couldn't take risks. You couldn't walk away from the paycheck, because if you did, you'd lose the house. That's not freedom. That's a golden cage. A really, really comfortable golden cage. Now fast forward to today, and the system has gotten even more sophisticated. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent survey of consumer finances, the median American family has a net worth of around $192,000. That sounds like a decent number until you realize that for most families, the majority of that net worth is locked up in their primary home, their house. And here's the thing about your house. It's not a wealth-building asset the way most people think it is. Yes, homes appreciate over time. But when you factor in mortgage interest, property taxes, maintenance, insurance, and the opportunity cost of the money you put into that down payment, the average home barely keeps up with inflation over the long run. According to research from economist Robert Shiller, inflation-adjusted home prices in the United States grew at roughly 0.4% per year for most of the 20th century. 0.4%. That's it. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 has returned an average of about 10% annually over the last century, or roughly 7% after adjusting for inflation. The same money you put into a down payment, if you'd invested it in a basic index fund instead, would have grown somewhere between 15 and 20 times more over a 30-year period. But nobody tells you that in the mortgage commercial. The commercial shows the happy couple getting the keys to their dream home. It doesn't show them at 55, house rich and cash poor, wondering why they can't afford to retire. Here's where it gets really interesting and a little uncomfortable, so stick with me. Think about the word salary. Where does it come from? It comes from the Latin word salarium, which is related to salt. In ancient Rome, soldiers were sometimes paid partly in salt. Salt was valuable. Salt was necessary, and you needed to keep coming back for more of it. A salary is the same concept, just dressed up in modern clothing. You exchange your time and your labor for money, and then you exchange that money for stuff. And then you need more money. So you go back to work, and the cycle repeats. Economists call this the wage price spiral. I call it the hamster wheel. You're running as fast as you can, the wheel is spinning like crazy, and you're not actually going anywhere. Now here's the part that should make you stop and think. The people who designed this system, the executives, the shareholders, the investors, they're not on the hamster wheel. They're watching the hamster wheel. And every time you run a little faster, they make a little more money. According to research from the Economic Policy Institute, since 1978, CEO pay at the largest American companies has grown by over 1,460%. Worker pay over the same period? About 18% when adjusted for inflation. The gap isn't just a gap anymore. It's a chasm. But here's what most finance channels won't tell you. And this is where it gets really juicy. The middle class isn't just kept broke by low wages and expensive houses. It's kept broke by something much more insidious. It's kept broke by identity. Think about what happens when someone from the middle class starts making real money. What's the first thing most people do? They upgrade their lifestyle. Nicer car, bigger house, better vacations, fancier restaurants. And why? Because that's what success is supposed to look like. That's what the movies told you. That's what the neighbors model. There's a term for this: lifestyle inflation. And it's one of the most effective wealth destroyers ever invented. Because it means that no matter how much more you earn, you never actually get ahead. You just spend more. The wealthy don't do this. Or at least the ones who actually stay wealthy don't. They understand a principle that sounds dead simple, but is genuinely hard to live by. You don't get rich by earning more. You get rich by keeping more, and then making that kept money work for you. Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in the history of the world, lived in the same house in Omaha, Nebraska for decades. He bought it in 1958 for $31,500. As of a few years ago, he still lived there. A man worth hundreds of billions of dollars, in a house he bought for $31,000. That's not him being weird. That's him understanding something that the middle class never gets taught. Let me hit you with another one, because I want you to really feel this. The average American household carries over $100,000 in total debt. Mortgages, car loans, student loans, credit cards. And on that debt, they're paying interest. Lots of interest. The average credit card interest rate in the United States is now over 20%. 20%. If you're carrying a $10,000 credit card balance at 20% interest, you're paying $2,000 a year just to maintain the debt. Just for the privilege of having already spent money you didn't have. Now flip it around. If you invested $10,000 in a diversified index fund and earned a 10% annual return, you'd make $1,000 a year. But you're not making $1,000. You're losing $2,000. That's a $3,000 swing per year, every year, in the wrong direction. And that's before we even talk about compound interest working against you over decades. Banks figured this out a very long time ago. Credit was marketed to the middle class as empowerment. Use your credit. Fulfill your dreams now. What they didn't put in the brochure was, and pay us a fortune for the next 30 years while you do it. This is what I mean when I say the system was designed. Debt keeps you employed because you need the paycheck to service the debt. It keeps you consuming because credit makes it so easy to buy things you can't afford. And it keeps the banks, the credit card companies, and the financial institutions spectacularly wealthy while the average person spins their wheels. Now let me bring in our mascot for a second, because I want you to picture something. Imagine a character. Let's call him Max. Max is the perfectly engineered middle-class citizen. He does everything right by conventional standards. He went to college, took out loans to do it, got a solid corporate job, bought a house in a good neighborhood with a 30-year mortgage, drives a car he financed over 72 months, contributes 3% to his 401k because that's the company match, and every Friday he and his wife have date night at that Italian place downtown. Max is not struggling. Max is comfortable. And that comfort is exactly the problem. See, Max is so comfortable that he never asks the hard questions. He never asks why his 401k is largely in mutual funds with expense ratios eating a percentage of his returns every year. He never asks why his home mortgage is structured so that for the first 20 years he's primarily paying interest, not principal. He never asks why his car, a depreciating asset, is costing him more in interest than the car itself. He never asks who's getting rich off of Max's perfectly normal, perfectly comfortable, perfectly engineered life. Max is the product. Max is the customer. And Max doesn't even know it. Okay, so now that I've thoroughly bummed you out, let's talk about what you can actually do. Because here's the thing that genuinely frustrates me about how this topic usually gets presented. People talk about the problem endlessly and then give you vague advice like invest in yourself or think like the wealthy. That's not helpful. You need a playbook. So here it is. The first thing you have to do, the absolute foundation of everything else, is understand the difference between assets and liabilities. This isn't new. Robert Kiyosaki talked about it in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But I'm going to say it in a way that I think is even clearer. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket whether you work or not. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Your primary home is, for most people, a liability. Your car is almost always a liability. Your 65-inch TV is a liability. Your stock portfolio is an asset. A rental property that cash flows is an asset. A business that earns revenue is an asset. The wealthy spend their lives accumulating assets. The middle class spends their lives accumulating liabilities while calling them assets. And the financial industry is absolutely thrilled to sell you liabilities while calling them assets, because that's how they make their money. The second thing you need to do is break up with lifestyle inflation right now. Today, I'm not telling you to live like a monk. I'm not telling you to never eat out or never take a vacation. What I'm telling you is to draw a line. Decide right now what your baseline lifestyle costs are. And then, every single time your income increases, commit to investing at least 50% of that increase before your lifestyle has a chance to expand to absorb it. This is called paying yourself first, and it works because of one simple fact about human psychology. We adapt to whatever we have. If you earn $60,000 and live on $55,000, you feel the same level of comfort as someone who earns $100,000 and lives on $95,000. The lifestyle feels the same, but the person saving $5,000 a year versus $5,000 a year, that math is identical. The difference is that if you'd been investing the difference along the way, one of those people is building real wealth and the other is still on the wheel. Third, and this one's critical, get your money out of your mattress and into assets that work for you. Now, I want to be careful here because I'm not a licensed financial advisor and I'm not telling you specifically what to invest in. What I am telling you is that leaving money sitting in a savings account earning 0.01% interest while inflation runs at 3, 4, 5% is guaranteed wealth destruction. You are losing money in real terms every single day it sits there not working. At minimum, familiarize yourself with low-cost index funds. These are baskets of stocks that track a market index, like the S&P 500. Historically, a simple S&P 500 index fund has outperformed roughly 90% of actively managed funds over a 20-year period, according to data from S&P Global's Spiva report. And they do it with dramatically lower fees. When a mutual fund charges you 1% annually versus an index fund at 0.03%, that difference sounds tiny. Over 30 years on a $100,000 investment, that difference can mean $100,000 or more in lost returns due to compounding. That's real money. The wealthy understand compound interest the same way banks do. Banks use it against you with your debts. You need to use it for you with your investments. Time in the market beats timing the market. Starting now, even with small amounts, is infinitely better than waiting until you have enough to invest. Fourth, and this is where things get a little more advanced, but stick with me. Start thinking about income streams, plural. The middle-class mindset is built around a single income source, your job. And the problem with that is it means a single point of failure. If that job disappears, your entire financial life is in jeopardy. The wealthy don't think in single streams. They think in rivers and tributaries. Now you don't have to go build a real estate empire overnight. But start asking yourself, is there a skill I have that I could monetize on the side? Could I invest in dividend-paying stocks that send me a check just for holding them? Could I create something, a course, a piece of content, a small product, that earns money without requiring my direct time? This isn't hustle culture nonsense. This is basic risk management. If you have 3 income streams and one disappears, you still have 2. If you have 1 income stream and it disappears, you have nothing. According to research compiled by various financial publications, the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. 7. Your employer gives you 1. The rest are up to you. Fifth, get obsessive about what your money costs you. Read every financial product you use. Understand the fee structure of your 401k. Understand the interest rate on every debt you carry. Understand what your homeowner's insurance, your car insurance, and your subscriptions are actually costing you on an annual basis. Not a monthly basis. Annual. Because monthly numbers are designed to make things look small. $19.99 a month sounds like nothing. $240 a year for something you barely use feels different. Now multiply that by every subscription, every fee, every recurring charge bleeding your account quietly. Most middle-class households are hemorrhaging hundreds to thousands of dollars annually on financial products and subscriptions they barely use or don't understand. Every dollar you stop losing is a dollar you can put to work. Now I want to leave you with something, because I've spent the last 10 minutes essentially dismantling the system you were raised to believe in, and I don't want you to walk away feeling hopeless. I want you to walk away feeling dangerous. Because here's the thing. The system that was built to keep you comfortable was built on the assumption that you would never question it. It was built on the assumption that you would be too busy working, too busy spending, and too satisfied with your Friday night Italian dinner to ever stop and ask, wait a minute, who designed this? And who benefits? You just stopped and asked. That makes you different. The path out of the middle-class trap isn't complicated. It doesn't involve any get-rich-quick schemes or crypto tips or real estate seminars in a hotel conference room. It's boring, and it's relentless, and it absolutely works. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference in assets. Build multiple income streams. Eliminate high-interest debt like your financial life depends on it, because it does. And stop spending money to signal wealth to people who probably aren't even paying attention. The difference between Max, our perfectly engineered middle-class mascot, and someone who actually builds generational wealth isn't intelligence. It isn't luck. It isn't even income most of the time. It's awareness. It's knowing the rules of the game you're playing. Because once you know the rules, you can start playing a completely different game. And I promise you, the other game is a lot more interesting. If this hit home for you, do me a favor and share this video with one person in your life who needs to hear it. Not to depress them, but because this kind of information changes things. It changed things for me. And the more people who understand how this system actually works, the harder it becomes for that system to keep running the way it always has. We'll see you in the next one.